Welcome to all of you. Today we are going to solve fifth problem in case of liquidation of a company. Here's the question that appears before you. This question has come for 2008, 10 and 11 question papers. From the following details, prepare liquidator final statement of accounts. So you need to prepare the liquidators, the final settlement of accounts statement. It's not a ledger account rather, so the question of 2 by DRCR will not come. So what are the assets we have with us? We have land and building 6 lakh, then we have plant and machine 3 lakh 50,000, we have furniture 1 lakh 20,000, stock and debtor 80,000, and then we have cash 10,000. These are the 5 assets that appears before us. Then we have liabilities, we have debentures, and then we have creditors. 2 liabilities with 5 assets. The assets other than plant and machinery realized 10% less, land and building realized 25% more. It means plant and machinery is realized 10% less. It means plant and machinery is sold at 90%. Land and building realized 25% more. It means land and building is realized at 125%. So land and building realized at 125%. Plant and machinery realized at 90%. Then we have liquidation expenses 5,000. So we have a fixed realization expenses, so-called liquidation expenses 5,000. Then we have liquidator remuneration is 2% on assets realized except cash and 3% on amount distributed to unsecured creditor. It means the salary payable, remuneration payable to liquidator is calculated on 2 bases. It's calculated on assets sold and it is calculated on liabilities paid. Here liabilities paid means unsecured creditor. So liquidator remuneration is calculated on assets sold. So what is the total value of assets sold? On that calculate 2%. Don't consider cash to calculate remuneration because cash is a non-realizable asset. So living cash, calculate remuneration on assets at 2% and calculate remuneration on unsecured creditor amount paid. So how much you pay to unsecured creditor, on that you should calculate at 3%. So thus liquidator remuneration is calculated at 2% on assets sold, living cash, and 3% on amount paid to unsecured creditors. Dear students, one important point. Look at the assets what we have on the above. Land and building is sold at 125%. Plant and machinery is sold at 90%. They have not mentioned furniture, stock and debtor is sold or not sold. They have not mentioned. So we assume that it is sold. We are not supposed to just ignore any assets. So we need to keep in mind that furniture, stock and debtor, nothing is mentioned. We assume that it is sold. So now let us look into how this question is being solved. Here's the answer before you. So liquidator's final statement of accounts. What are the items appears in the left side? That's called receipt side. cash is taken 10,000 outer column because cash is a non-realizable asset. So cash to be taken separately. Then we have land and building, 6 lakh into 125%. We get 7 lakh 50,000. It's sold at 25% more. Plant and machinery sold at 90%. So 3 lakh 60,000 into 90%. We get 3 lakh 24,000. Then furniture and stock and debtor is also realized at 90%. What do they mention in the question? All assets other than land and building is realized at 90% less. So, plant and machinery realized at 90%, furniture 90%, stock and debtor also 90%. So, in the question they mention all assets other than plant and machinery and other assets is sold at 90%. So therefore, furniture is realized at 90%, stock and debtor is also realized at 90%. So then 4 assets realized will be 12 lakh 54,000. So we have cash 10,000, then furniture, land and building, plant and machine. Then we have furniture, stock and debtor. All these assets are being realized. What are the liabilities paid? The liabilities paid goes like this. First we have secured creditor, but unfortunately in our question we don't have any secured creditors. So secured creditor is dash in the question. Then we have a liquidation expenses 5,000. Then we have liquidator remuneration. Liquidator remuneration is calculated at 2% on assets realized and 3% on unsecured creditors paid. So on assets realized, it's 12 lakh 54,000 into 2%. So total assets sold, land and building, plant and machine, furniture, stock and debtor, it's 12 lakh 54,000 into 2%, we get 25,080. Number 2, remuneration is not calculated on preferential creditor, so no remuneration on preferential creditor because we don't have. Next, on unsecured creditor, we pay 3%. How to calculate? Amount paid or amount available is 4,33,920 divided by 103 into 3. Whenever sufficient amount is not available, we should calculate second formula. Amount available divided by 103 into 3%. So the question is, how did you get this 4,33,920? I repeat, how did you get this 4,33,920? The heg bantu. Take your calculator. Debit side we have cash 10,000 plus total assets realized is 12 lakh 54,000. This is the total amount available in our hand. ನಮ್ಮ ಕೈಯಲ್ಲಿ ಇರುವಂತ ಹಣ 12,64,000 ಮೈನಸ್ ಯಾವ್ಯಾವ ಪಾವತಿ ಮಾಡಿರೋದು, what are the payments we made, minus liquidation expenses 5,000, minus liquidator remuneration on assets 25,080, minus debenture payment 8 lakh. So we have amount available 4,33,920. ನಮ್ಮಲ್ಲಿ ಇರೋ ಹಣ 4,33,920. But how much you should pay to unsecured creditor? 4,60,000. You should pay 4,60,000. Sufficient amount is not available. So when sufficient amount is not available, we should apply the second formula. 4,33,920 into 3% divided by 103. Therefore, liquidator remuneration 12,638. So, liquidator remuneration is calculated on assets 2%, on unsecured creditor 4,33,920 divided by 103 into 3. So, after liquidator remuneration, we need to pay debenture 8 lakh. Then we have to pay preferential creditor, no preferential creditor. So leftover amount is 4,21,282. 4,21,282. This is the amount payable. Actually, how you got this 4,21,282? Debit side total 12,64,000 minus expenses 5,000 minus remuneration 37,718 minus debentures 8 lakh. So amount payable to preferential creditor 4,21,282, but actually we need to pay 4,60,000. So we need to pay 4,60,000. So we pay 91 paisa in a rupee. 1 ರೂಪಾಯಿ ಕೊಡೋ ಜಾಗದಲ್ಲಿ ನಾವು ಕೊಡೋ ಅಂತ ಅಮೌಂಟು 91 ಪೈಸಾ. That's 4,21,282 divided by 4,60,000. Thank you.